Fate Extra is a 2010 dungeon crawling JRPG for the PSP developed by Type Moon and Image Epoch. Fate Extra is one of the many entries of the Fate series and takes place in an alternate timeline to the visual novel Fate Stay Night. With the varying quality of the Fate series, how does Fate Extra compare to the rest? Fate Extra follows the protagonist, a person with no recollection of their past and has found themselves in the midst of what is known as the Holy Grail War. If you are familiar with Fate Stay Night, the war works a bit differently. Instead of fighting a 7-person battle royale, the Holy Grail War in Extra works more like a tournament. Of 128 people, only one will remain and claim the Grail to have their wish granted. Without any memories, you must fight alongside your servant in hopes to one day get back the memories you once lost. Fate Extra brings in many interesting concepts within the world. The world building is what makes the story so intriguing. As you survive through each round, you learn more about the Holy Grail, the world you are in, and the masters you are up against. The story is the main reason to go into the game. The concepts it brings into the Fate universe are interesting and it delivers them well. Behind all that is the core theme of what does it mean to be human? Should you live for the sake of humanity while casting aside your personal beliefs and issues? Or should you live for yourself, casting aside others for the sake of your own happiness? Fighting to keep the status quo, or fight to make some sort of advancement, even though what you advance to is uncertain. These themes are conveyed by the unique perspectives of each character you meet. Throughout the game, you meet many interesting characters as you progress through the tournament, whether they be friend or foe. The protagonist seems to be just a basic self-insert character, and while that's not wrong at first, as you get farther into the tournament, you see their mentality start to change. While having amnesia, the protagonist has many questions about his morality. Is it okay for him to take the lives of others when they all have dreams to accomplish, while he is unsure if he has his own? Seeing the protagonist's thoughts while he goes through the tournament and how he changes throughout gives him more depth than just your average self-insert. Alongside his 3 possible servants, Saber, Caster, and Archer, depending on who you choose, all of them have their own unique quirks and traits that make it enjoyable to listen to their dialogue, whether it be in the arena, the reactions to the other masters and servants, or it be private talks between the two of you.
拠点としてはこんなところか。座り心地はいまいちだが、贅沢を言える立場で。
All of them add in their own personalities, which make multiple playthroughs worth it. The other masters and servants you encounter all are unique in their personalities and fighting style. As you meet the other master and servants, you see their compatibility or incompatibility with one another. Learning the backstory and the personalities between the servants and masters is always a fun thing to do, as every master and servant and their relationship is drastically different from each other. However, learning about their past and their wish for the Holy Grail only makes it harder for you in the end. One problem with the characters is that not all of them are given the same development. There are 2 enemy masters in particular where you learn almost nothing about them except their personalities. Though this only applies to a small fraction of the characters, the problem still exists. One interesting aspect of the game is seeing the various characters from Fate Stay Night make a return. Seeing how their backstory and roles differ from their Stay Night counterparts is very interesting to discover. There isn't much to say about the visuals for Fate Extra. As it is a game for the PSP, they aren't amazing but not bad either. It does its job to showcase the characters, attacks, and locations. Overall, the visuals are pretty basic, but it doesn't take away from the experience. The soundtrack at first may not seem amazing, but as you get further along in the game, it slowly grows on you. The soundtrack is very atmospheric and sets the tone, whether it be just training in the arena, imminent danger, or some depressing moments. The soundtrack perfectly pairs with what's going on. Some tracks that stood out to me are tracks such as Battle 3, Bye, Death, and Narrow EX. The soundtrack is somewhat short, however, so it's common to hear the same track play in similar situations. The gameplay for Fate Extra has many layers to it that it needs to be divided up to properly explain it. The gameplay can be divided into dialogue choices, information gathering, and combat. Throughout the game, you'll be able to make choices in the dialogue. For the most part, the choices you make rarely have any major impact to the actual story, except for very few. However, if you make the wrong choice, in some situations, you may end up dead, so it's best to save before a major encounter. Another portion of the game is information gathering, which is an important part. Every week in the game, you will have a new master and servant to fight, and the safest way to fight them is to have as much information as you can about their servant. In the tournament, every matchup lasts 1 week. For that week, it is your job to train your servant while finding information about your enemy. After the week is over, you will have a chance to put the information you find to use and defeat your enemy and progress through the tournament. As you encounter the enemy throughout the week, information about their servant will slowly be revealed. Throughout the week, you will find out 3 major facts about that servant and can conclude their true name. At first it seems fun and interesting, but after doing that for a while it can get boring and tedious. While some information is given just for progressing through the day normally, most of the time you have to go out of your way and look for that information. This is fun for the first few weeks, but afterwards it can get stressful. When information is available, it will only be available for that day. If you clear the day and miss that piece of information, you will be unable to acquire that piece of information unless you go back to a recent save. In the later parts of the game, this slows down the pacing as you are constantly checking every area of the school just to make sure that vital information is there. Once you are done checking around the school for information, it's time to head into the arena. The arena is a place to train your servant by defeating various mobs in order to gain XP and level up. With each level, you gain points which you can put into your servant's stats. The combat is like a 6-round rock paper scissors match. While this may sound horrible and luck based, once you get into it and memorize the attack patterns of each enemy, you can minimize the luck factor. As you defeat more of the same type of enemy, you'll be able to see what moves they will make. This is why gathering information on the enemy servant is important. Getting a free hit on the enemy can make a huge difference later in the match. While it sounds basic, mix in the use of skills and items and it makes the fights way more complex. The problem with this style of combat is that it is very slow. In the arena, defeating mob after mob for XP can take upwards to 30 minutes just to gain a couple of levels later on in the game. While killing endless mobs is boring after a while, the combat shines in the boss battles. Each boss battle brings you something new. You have to strategically use items and skills to get the edge over your opponent. If you treat a boss battle like a normal enemy, you will regret it. Fate Extra is a game with a great story, characters, and unique gameplay, but does have some rough moments scattered throughout. Overall, I give Fate Extra a 6.8 out of 10. The slow moments in the story and gameplay, average visuals, and the fact that some characters aren't touched on at all bring the game down. However, the story brings in an interesting world and concepts. The characters that are fleshed out have amazing stories and motivations. And though the gameplay is slow at times, the master battles are very enjoyable and challenging. If you are interested in the Fate series, I highly recommend giving this game a go, mainly for the story. The game is able to have its own identity rather than just being another Fate spin-off. It's safe to say you can play the extra games without any knowledge of Stay Night, as there are explanations for the basics of what the Holy Grail War, Servants, and Masters are. However, those who have the knowledge of Stay Night can appreciate many aspects of the story a lot more. It's important to mention that on July 22nd, it was revealed that this game will be getting a remaster called Fate Extra Record, with no release date announced. From the trailer, the remaster will change the camera angle, combat, and of course, the visuals. We are back at the Fate tier list, with the third Fate review, Fate Extra, will be put below Babylonia and Hollow Ataraxia at the 6.8 mark. Next time we see this chart will be for the sequel Fate Extra CCC. I don't have too many things I want to add on. I think the game itself was a nice experience. The only aspect I was disappointed in was the amount of voice acting. While some things were voice acted, it was only a small amount, but that's just my preference. I'm also looking forward to playing the sequel, CCC, and see how the story can build upon itself. The only thing stopping me is that there is no English version right now. The only way to experience the story as an English player is through watching a playthrough via YouTube. So I'm unsure if I should wait for the fan translations to be done or just continue using a YouTube playthrough for the story bits. And while it may be a few years away, I am looking forward to the remake. And I think seeing what changes are made will be interesting. You can buy Fate Extra on the PlayStation Store for the PSP. Well, hope you enjoyed. My next video will be my thoughts and hopes for the upcoming Fate Stay Night Heaven's Feel 3. Thanks for watching. Later.